Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, I want you to really think about all those unspoken messages, the ones you encounter every single day.
Mm.
Imagine you're at an airport, okay? You might see a woman maybe pinching her hand, but
Mhm.
reassuring herself before a flight,
Right.
or, a man sitting really rigidly, ankles locked tight, nervous.
Yeah, you see that all the time.
Or maybe you look at someone on the phone and you can just guess, right? Salesman, all attention. Husband, totally relaxed. A lover, kind of hunched over, intimate. These aren't just random movements, are they?
No, not at all. It's actually remarkable how much we communicate without saying a word. These actions, often we don't even realize we're doing them. They tell a story. And this deep dive, it's all about learning to read people, exploring that often overlooked world of nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Our source today really shows how these cues, they complement what we say, they add to it. Sometimes they even replace words altogether.
Absolutely. So for this exploration, we're diving into a really foundational text, How to Read a Person Like a Book
Mm,
by Gerard Nierenberg and Henry Calero.
a classic.
Exactly. And our mission really is to get past those vague feelings, unlock some genuinely surprising insights into gestures, help you become instantly more well-informed about human behavior without having to, sift through tons of research.
And the core idea, right at the heart of what these authors teach, is just how critical it is to watch for gesture clusters. That's their term.
Fisher clusters, okay.
Yeah, groups of nonverbal signals, not just one single gesture in isolation. They really stress congruence,
Congruous, meaning,
meaning when all the gestures line up with each other and with the words being spoken, that's usually where the true message lies. And what's really fascinating is they argue that nonverbal cues can often be, well, more truthful than words.
that's such a powerful point. It reminds me how the authors bring up Lord Chesterfield, paraphrasing him, basically
Yeah.
saying, learning from books is good, sure. But the really necessary learning, that only comes from reading men, reading people.
Exactly.
So this deep dive, then, it's really about equipping you, the listener, to move past those automatic subconscious assumptions we all make. It's about enabling more conscious evaluation, better judgments, really, in all parts of life.
Absolutely. It's a skill you can develop.
So let's unpack this idea first, that real-life, everyday situations, that's the best testing ground for understanding gestures. The authors kick off with this amazing analogy, actually. It's not even about people. It's about cars.
Oh, yeah, the Ford story. It's brilliant. The vacuum automatic door lock.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so Ford designed this thing for safety, right?
Mm.
Doors lock automatically when the car hits, like 9 miles per hour. Sounds great in theory.
Sounds
But it failed, like spectacularly in the real world. Specifically, automatic car washes.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Drivers go through, the wheels spin up on the rollers, hit 9 mile per hour, bang, doors lock. They get to the end of the line, trapped inside their own car.
You're kidding?
Nope. Had to call locksmiths. Ford actually had to switch back to manual locks because of it. It's just such a vivid parallel for human gestures. They're complex, they're dynamic. You can't understand them just in theory or, outside the messy reality of life.
That makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. We humans, we've kind of intuitively understood gestures forever, right?
Yeah.
That subconscious empathy they mentioned. We just get a feeling.
It's built in.
But their research really pushes for moving from that gut feeling to conscious evaluation, because otherwise you can get things so wrong.
Definitely.
Like they give the example of a judge. Maybe his grimace isn't anger at all. Maybe it's from a stroke. But if the lawyers misread that,
Mm-hmm.
wow, the consequences could be huge.
And that's why they keep coming back to this idea, individual gestures, or like single words.
Okay.
The real meaning only comes when you see the whole sentence, the cluster. And crucially, whether that sentence makes sense, whether there's congruence.
So if gestures are words,
Yeah.
what happens when the words don't match the sentence? What's a classic example of that incongruity?
Oh, the perfect one has to be the nervous laugh.
Yes.
It's textbook incongruity, isn't it? The sound, it suggests amusement, happiness even. But the body, the fidgeting, the tight shoulders, maybe avoiding eye contact, it's telling a completely different story.
Yeah, usually discomfort.
Exactly. The authors found it rarely comes from real humor. It's much more likely to be about uncertainty, anxiety, maybe even fear.
And this idea of congruence, it's so critical on things like public speaking, right?
Yeah.
Especially with politics on TV, where every little nonverbal tick gets amplified.
Oh, absolutely. They talk about politicians saying things like, I'm sincerely receptive, trying to sound open.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, they're maybe shaking a finger or doing those aggressive karate chop hand gestures at the lectern.
Right. You feel the disconnect. Even if you can't quite name it, it just feels off.
Precisely. And to really hammer this home, they even suggest looking at Dickens. Great Expectations.
Dickens, how so?
Well, Trav's boy. He's pretending to be terrified, right? And his gestures are completely over the top, but they're all congruent. His knees knock, his hair stands on end, cap falls off, he's trembling, throws himself in the dust. Wow. The sheer exaggeration and the fact that every gesture screams terror makes the fake emotion incredibly memorable. You don't just hear it, you see it.
Okay, that's a great illustration. But it brings up a risk, doesn't it? What if we miss these signals? The authors warn about how easily we can tune out nonverbal stuff.
Yeah, especially after first impression.
Right, like someone walks into your office, seems open, maybe unbuttons their coat, looks relaxed, and you think, okay, this is going well. But then maybe subtly their fists clench, or they start tapping a finger, signals of a shift, maybe towards hostility, that you could totally miss if you're just listening to the words. It's like their body's having a whole separate conversation.
That's a really crucial point. It shows it's not just about passively reading people, it's about active observation. You have to keep watching.
So what does this all mean for us trying to get better at this? It really is like learning a new language, isn't it? It takes conscious effort.
It does. It doesn't just happen.
The authors actually give some practical homework. Things like setting aside 10 minutes a day just to read people.
Yeah, observe them in public. Or watch TV interviews, maybe discussion shows, but with the sound off.
Sound off. Just focus purely on the gestures, the congruence, the clusters.
Exactly. It sounds simple, but apparently it's incredibly insightful. You start noticing patterns you'd completely missed before.
Okay, I can see that. It forces you to pay attention differently.
It really does.
So if life's the testing ground and we need to observe consciously, where do we start? The authors point to the face, right, as kind of an open window.
Absolutely. The face is usually the most obvious place, the one we look at most readily.
So what are the eyes? What do they tell us?
Well, eyes are incredibly expressive. Normally, in conversation, we make eye contact maybe 30 to 60% of the time. That's typical. But here's where it gets interesting. If it's more than 60%, it can signal really intense interest, like lovers gazing at each other. But, and this is maybe surprising, it can also signal hostility, like someone squaring up for a confrontation. Eye contact actually tends to increase when someone feels defensive or hostile.
That is surprising.
And another subtle thing, pupils can dilate slightly when someone's emotionally aroused or interested. And then there's gaze aversion, looking away when we feel uncomfortable or maybe when we're, being a bit evasive.
Right. I definitely felt that awkwardness when someone avoids eye contact. Yeah. Okay, what about the mouth and brows? What are the key signals there?
Well, tightly closed lips. You often see that in tough negotiators. It's like a nonverbal, my lips are sealed or my mind's made up. And they also talk about the oblong smile. You know, the one, it's that polite grimace that doesn't reach the eyes.
Oh, yeah, the forced smile.
Exactly. You use it when you have to pretend you liked a bad joke, or you're just generally uncomfortable. It's social camouflage, really. It signals discomfort, not real amusement. A classic bit of incongruence.
Got it.
And in conflict situations, you'll almost always see the eyebrows frown, the lips get tense, and often the chin juts forward a bit. It's a pretty universal cluster for confrontation or displeasure.
Wow, so much information just on the face. Okay, let's move down. What about something as basic as how we walk? Can walking gestures tell us much?
Oh, definitely. The way we move speaks volumes. Think about someone strutting, maybe hands on hips that signals readiness, confidence, like Churchill, that iconic stance.
Right.
Contrast that with someone shuffling along, head down, maybe staring at the pavement. That often signals dejection, low spirits. Or hands jammed in pockets, even when it's not cold, the authors suggest that can indicate a critical or secretive attitude. Our walk really betrays our inner state.
And handshakes.
Yeah.
That first moment of physical contact, we've all had weird ones.
Haven't we? Just the clammy handshake obviously signals nerves. Ugh, yes.
Or the infamous dead fish, just limp. Generally unpopular, though the authors say, be careful, maybe it's an artist or surgeon protecting their hands.
Good point. But what about the politician's handshake?
Yes. The
Yeah.
two-hander. Right hand grasps, left hand comes over the top, maybe cups the elbow or forearm.
Yeah, why did it do that?
It's intended to convey extra warmth, sincerity, connection. But the authors argue it's often perceived as the opposite. Insincere, maybe even a bit manipulative, like they're trying too hard. It often backfires.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to broader attitudes. Openness versus defensiveness. We see these all the time. What are the really clear signals for openness?
Well, open hands are a big one. Palms up often signifies sincerity, honesty, like when kids proudly show you something they did, their hands are open.
Makes sense.
Another really strong one is unbuttoning a coat or jacket. It suggests the person is opening up, becoming more agreeable, friendlier. You see it in interviews sometimes when the guest starts to relax.
And if you see a cluster say, unbuttoning the coat, uncrossing legs, maybe moving forward to the edge of the chair, that's a pretty clear sign they're ready to connect, cooperate, get together, as the authors put it.
And the flip side, defensiveness. What are the dead giveaways that someone's putting up walls?
The absolute classic is arms crossed tightly across the chest. It's protective. It signals a fixed position. Think of a baseball umpire during an argument.
Yeah, perfect image.
And what's interesting is this posture can actually influence others in a group. People might unconsciously start mirroring it. Clenched fists often go along with crossed arms, reinforcing that defensive kind of stranglehold feeling. And then there's leg crossing. The authors point out the American figure 4 position ankle resting on the opposite knee.
Right.
They say this often pops up during a really competitive stage in negotiations and settlements. They usually only happen after the legs get uncrossed. It's a very strong signal of digging your heels in.
Wow, that specific link to negotiations is fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, so what about when someone's thinking, evaluating, or maybe being a bit suspicious or secretive? What signals pop up then?
For evaluation, the classic is hand to cheek. Rodin's the thinker, right?
Yep.
It signals contemplation, interest. A tilted head also usually means interest, attentive listening. Stroking the chin, that's almost universal for, let me consider this, especially during decision-making.
Okay, and suspicion or secretiveness?
Well, avoiding eye contact is a big one, as we mentioned, but also watch for that incongruity again, the words saying one thing, the body another. Shakespeare nailed it. One may smile and be a villain. That mismatch is a huge warning sign.
Right, the gut feeling that something's not right.
Exactly. Also, the sideways glance can signal doubt or rejection.
Right.
And a really practical one, watch where people's feet or even their whole body is pointing, if they're angled towards the exit.
They want out.
They likely want the conversation or meeting to end. Smart hosts, good employees, they pick up on that subtle signal immediately. Okay, that's a useful one. Are there any other sort of subtle gestures that might indicate someone's being less than truthful? Or maybe just uncertain?
One the authors highlight is lightly touching or rubbing the nose.
Rubbing the nose.
Really, yeah. Apparently, it's quite common, often unconscious. You see it a lot in teenagers when they're maybe bending the truth or just unsure. But adults do it too, especially articulate ones, maybe when they're uncertain how their message is landing or possibly, covering something up. It's not like a perfect lie detector, obviously, but it's a strong indicator of some kind of internal conflict or doubt about what's being said.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift again. Readiness and cooperation versus frustration. How do those more active states show up nonverbally?
For readiness, hands on hips again, that goal-oriented, ready-for-action stance.
Right, the Churchill.
Exactly. Sitting right on the edge of the chair can also signal readiness, either eagerness to buy something maybe, or just eagerness to leave.
Could be either.
Could be either. And when someone spreads their arms, hands gripping the edge of a table, that's often a strong listen to me or pay attention posture. They're ready to engage, make their point.
Okay. And when things go wrong, frustration bubbling up.
Well, you might see more overt things then. Kicking the ground, slapping one's head, breaking pencils, though maybe less common now. Basically letting off steam.
Right.
Short, sharp breaths can signal rising anger, like something is really getting to them. Tightly clenched hands, again, can show that feeling of being wiped out, which often leads to an impasse in talks. And that pointing index finger. Politicians use it, but in one-on-one situations, it's generally disliked. Feels like a reprimand, accusatory.
Yeah, nobody likes being pointed at.
Exactly. It feels admonishing, not collaborative.
Okay, last big comparison.
Yeah.
Confidence versus nervousness, or maybe self-control. What are the nonverbal tells for someone who's assured versus someone who's maybe struggling internally?
Confidence often shows in an erect posture, steady gaze, less blinking, and a really key gesture they discuss is steepling. Steepling?
Yeah, fingertips of both hands touching, forming a kind of church steeple shape.
Ah.
It's classic confidence, sometimes even a bit smug. Sherlock Holmes does it, executives, academics. Apparently, it can even be a poker tell.
Interesting.
Also, hands clasped behind the back, chin may be tilted up slightly. That signals authority, feeling in charge, like a sergeant major or an old-school London bobby.
I can picture that exactly. Okay, so that's confidence. What about nervousness? The body gives that away pretty easily, right?
Oh, absolutely. Just general uptightness, you know? Maybe walking quickly, choosing a chair far away, keeping the body crossed, shifting weight, clearing the throat repeatedly, especially when there's no physical need, often signals anxiety or apprehension. Hands covering the mouth while speaking can indicate self-doubt, maybe holding back, not wanting to fully commit to what's being said.
Right.
And then there's self-control, holding back strong emotions. One really interesting one is holding one arm behind the back, but gripping the wrist or arm tightly with the other hand.
What does that signify? It's often a disguised attempt to hold back, literally stopping oneself from, say, hitting something or someone, controlling anger.
Wow.
Similarly, locked ankles, often combined with clenched hands digging into the chair or their lap. You see this in the dentist's office, right?
Definitely.
Or job interviews, or when someone is desperately trying not to give in during a negotiation, they're literally holding themselves back.
Those are incredibly specific and insightful. Okay, so we've covered a ton of gestures and clusters. Let's quickly touch on how these play out in specific contexts. Relationships first, parent and child. Any unique insights there?
Well, the authors note mothers often have this amazing, almost instinctive understanding of their baby's cries. But even then, they point out she needs the whole picture. The baby's movements, facial expression, the cluster, to really know what the cry means.
Right, it's not just the sound.
Exactly. And with older kids, adolescents, the typical line gestures are often quite obvious. Avoiding eye contact, blinking rapidly, maybe covering the mouth, that nose rubbing we talked about, throat clearing. Interestingly, they say kids usually find their own parents the hardest people to lie to.
That makes sense. What about lovers? Beyond the obvious closeness, any specific mannerisms?
Yeah, besides just being close, you see a lot of reciprocal, touching, reassuring, affectionate pats or strokes, and lots of preening gestures.
Preening.
Yeah, smoothing hair, adjusting clothes. For women, maybe subtly rolling the pelvis or balancing a shoe provocatively. For men, adjusting the tie, shooting cuffs, checking cuff lengths. It's all about presentation, signaling attraction, making oneself look good for the other person.
Got it. And in professional settings, so client and professional.
Well, professionals often use nonverbals to show they're engaged. Taking notes, the hand-to-face evaluation gestures we discussed. It's important, they say, for the professional not to use the desk as a barrier and to try and mirror the client's openness rather than coming across as dominant or, overly academic. Building that nonverbal rapport is key.
Makes sense. Okay, moving beyond relationships to environments. What about just talking on the phone? Surely nonverbals don't matter then.
You'd think so, right? But no, people gesture even when no one can see them. Twisting the phone cord, shifting the handset, doodling.
I do that.
We all do.
Yeah.
Rocking in a chair, putting feet up, opening and closing drawers. It all still communicates something about engagement or state of mind. And apparently, standing up while on the phone is a pretty common signal of making a decision, or surprise, or sometimes just boredom. Our bodies just keep talking.
It seems they do.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've really taken a comprehensive deep dive here into how to read a person like a book. We've explored how focusing on those gesture clusters and looking for congruence is just such a powerful tool. It's not just about communication, but understanding the real feelings, the intentions underneath.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, maybe we can leave listeners with a final thought. It's about the purpose of this knowledge, right? It's not just about gaining some kind of mechanical advantage or learning how to manipulate people.
Right, there's more to it.
Yeah. The authors use this great analogy. They say, imagine someone sees you can get leverage by putting a long handle on a water pump. If that's all they see the mechanical advantage, they're missing something crucial.
Which is?
A long pump handle doesn't just give one person leverage. It also allows two people to work the pump handle together.
I see. Cooperation.
Exactly. So the challenge really is to view this kind of awareness, this ability to read nonverbal cues, not just as a tool for personal gain, but as a pathway. A path towards greater understanding, more empathy, and ultimately more effective cooperation in all our interactions.
That's a fantastic way to put it.
Yeah.
Make your own life, with all its rich, unspoken conversations, your ultimate laboratory